So you want to learn how to play blues bass? Well, you clicked on the right video. I'm going to walk you through 5 levels of playing legit, authentic blues bass lines. From level 1, the essential blues fundamentals, to level 5, freely improvising and jamming out on blues using a step-by-step method I've never seen taught anywhere else, so you can hold the groove down in any blues bar and be invited back again. But before you take to the stage and start blowing minds, you need to learn the basics of blues survival. And don't worry, it's not that hard to make it through a basic blues alive. You'll be able to play this in a couple minutes with just 3 simple steps. And by the end of the video, you'll know how to play killer lines like this, so stick around through the basics. Step 1 is to learn the structure that almost all blues songs follow, plus a lot of songs that are not blues, from James Brown to AC/DC. Once you absorb this, you'll be able to follow along without getting lost and quickly get up to speed at a blues jam. And this structure is called the 12-bar blues form. So what the hell does that mean? Well, first we're gonna need 12 bars. Throw them on screen, Tom. A bar is a group of musical beats, in this case 4 beats, so every 4 count fits in one of the spaces between those lines. And whatever chords we put in those 12 bars will repeat through the whole song, which is why you can learn a blues tune so quickly. Now what goes in each bar? Let me show you on guitar. In your typical blues, there are only 3 chords. We start on what's called the 1, kind of the starting reference point for the song. We stay there for 4 bars. And then we go to the 4 chord, another mysterious term we'll deal with in a second. Stay there for 2 bars, back to the 1 for 2 bars, and then in our final chunk of 4 bars, we go to the 5 chord, back to the 4 chord, and then back to the 1 for 2 more bars. And you have officially bluesed a blues. Step 1 in the bag. So you only need to find these 3 notes to get through a blues on bass. But what do you do if when I said 1, 4, 5, your brain kind of went all fuzzy and you forgot where you are? Oh, why am I holding a guitar? That's why you need step 2, blues survival shapes. A shape is just a visual pattern on the neck, and the right shape can give you a shortcut to knowing what notes to play. In this case, you can magically find the notes that are called 1, 4, 5 for the song using the 2 blues survival shapes, a high shape and a low shape. So starting with the high shape, this is super easy. We just pick a note to call the 1, which is whatever key the song is in. The one we're gonna play in a minute is an A flat. So you find an A flat, 4th fret of the E string, that's your 1. Now if you go up a string, same fret, you'll find the 4, and up 2 frets from there, the 5. So it just makes this triangle shape, and that's literally all you need to get through the 12-bar blues form. You just change to the note that matches the guitar chord. And real quick, the low shape is just as easy. You just flip the triangle around. So the 1 starts up high, then you go down 2 frets, down a string for the 4, up 2 frets from there for the 5, and it makes this flipped around triangle that also works. These shapes can be used anywhere for any blues in any key. It's not locked to these frets or this starting note. And by the way, there's way more theory-dense explanation of like what 1, 4, 5 means and why these notes are where they are, but I'm just trying to cut you a break so you can get to the blues jam with everything you need to survive the 12-bar blues. If you want more details, the PDF has all the goods plus references for these shapes. But if you just play 1 root note per chord like this, you're gonna raise some eyebrows. So step 3 is learning the basic rhythm that'll fit almost any blues. Once you internalize this feel, you can trick basically anyone into thinking you can actually play the blues. This distinctive rhythmic feel is called a shuffle, and learning this is mission critical for blues, but it's also used in other styles of music that were influenced by blues, like all of them, really. So you know when a song goes like dun dun na 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 na, that there is a shuffle. It feels like lumpy and uneven. So in your average 4/4 groove, we're counting evenly 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it feels even and straight like you're marching along. But when you play a shuffle, everything feels kind of lumpy, like you broke your foot and you're trying to march along, and it's like ga ga na da na da na 1 2 3 4. Not all blues is a shuffle, but a lot of it is. So the trick to knowing which to play at the blues jam is just to listen for the limp. If you hear that kind of limping sound in the guitar strums or the drummer's hi-hat or ride cymbal, then limp along proudly. Ga, 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 ga. So with the 12-bar form digested, your survival shapes helping you find the 1, 4, and the 5, and shuffling along, you could play a simple but totally legit blues bass line like Tommy Shannon's part on Blues Makes Me Feel So Good by Albert Cummings. And yes, this line is super legit. I mean, it's Tommy Shannon playing it. Need I say more? Tommy Shannon got his start playing with Johnny Winter, but most famously kicked ass in Stevie Ray Vaughan's Double Trouble Band. But you're only gonna get so far shuffling on root notes. You need to be able to add more flavor to your lines to not die of boredom. And by the end of this video, you'll know all the good tricks for creating interesting, flowing blues lines like the pros. Before you go toe-to-toe with Tommy Shannon's blues beast mode in level 5, the next step is level 2, common blues patterns. And the easiest version of this is learning the riff style blues, where the bass is just following the cool guitar riff. And the most iconic beginner example of this is probably Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs. This bass part copies the guitar part note for note, plays this simple 4-note riff, then repeats on the 4 chord and later on the 5 chord, and it's just like so cool. But to really nail level 2, you need to be able to come up with your own ideas, not just copy the guitar riff. And you can't go wrong by using the blues box, a simple shape that is physically incapable of producing anything but cool riffs. And it sounds like this. So if you can find the 3 root notes of a 12-bar blues using a survival shape, and then start the blues box on each of those notes, you can play tons of super legit blues bass ideas. And it's also used a ton in other styles of music, including rock and funk, but you just have to call it like the rock rectangle or the funk cube. And yes, it's actually legit. Tommy Shannon himself teaches it in his old Hot Licks instructional DVD. I've got lots of blues box formulas for you in the free PDF, including this pattern from Eric Clapton's version of I'm Tore Down. I've also generously provided you with like and subscribe buttons below the video, which you can click on because I said so. At this level, you could fool your bandmates into thinking you're a real blues bassist for like a song or two, but then they'll notice you're just playing the same box shape every time. So to have the tools to entertain yourself and that drunk lady who's dancing uncomfortably close to the stage, you need the more flavorful and varied patterns of level 3. To really understand these patterns, you need a little bit of theory, but if I say theory and your eyes glaze over, you can just memorize the shapes in the PDF. The first step of this level is nailing triad patterns, and you find these by grabbing the 1st, 3rd, and 5th notes from the major or minor scale, or you just memorize the basic shapes by rote, which you can see getting heavy action in Elvis Presley's version of Hound Dog. By the way, there's full sheet music and tab for every bass line I play in this video. Just check the link in the description. And triads are just the beginning of the juice you can get from thinking about scales. John Deacon uses the delicious and popular root 3rd, 5th, 6th pattern on Crazy Little Thing Called Love. And of course, we can never get enough of the old 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 3 pattern that you hear in like Ice Cream Man by Van Halen, Blue Suede Shoes by Elvis, and Boot Mill Blues by Gary Hoey. And if you're tired of hearing the word scales and panicking desperately, my Beginner to Badass course will take you from total bass and theory noob to knowing all the fundamentals you need to play patterns like this, understand how they work, and communicate with other musicians without sounding dumb. These scale patterns are getting you closer to the legit lines of level 5. But after a few songs go by at the Blues Jam, you'll notice something's still missing, a certain like coolness. And you do not want to sound like a square, because someone might steal your lunch money. Luckily, there's a trick for dialing up the coolness, and it's level 4, chromaticism, a religious order that began in the late Renaissance period, dedicated to the coolification of music through grand cathedrals, questionable formal wear, and the use of non-scale tones. Okay, not actually, but just that last part, using notes not from the scale strategically to create some tension to add some coolness. So it's like you're cruising along, playing the scale, and then it's like, whoa man, where are you going with that crazy note? And then you resolve it, and it's like, aha, you're a man with a plan and you're very cool. And most blues tunes use 2 basic patterns to incorporate chromaticism. Pattern 1 is the 3-fret walk-up. So a walk-up is a common bass player trick where you find a target note, usually a root or a 5th, and then you walk up to it. And these are used in pretty much every style of bass playing, from Chameleon to Smoke on the Water to Tommy Shannon again. You can hear the 3-fret walk-up to the 5th in Killing Floor by Howlin' Wolf, which Led Zeppelin ripped off totally uncredited with the Lemon Song. Nice work, guys. You can also 3-fret walk up to the root or the octave. Dusty Hill of ZZ Top uses this pattern to get back from the 4 chord to the 1 chord in Tush. And Tush is also hiding pattern number 2, the 2-fret walk up. In the turnaround, the last 4 bars of the 12-bar form, Dusty plays the most common version of this, a quick lead into the 5 chord at the end of the progression, which sounds like this. Take me down. And with your survival basics, common patterns, spicy patterns, and chromaticism all in your arsenal, all you need to do now is masterfully combine them all without your brain exploding. I guess that'll be level 5, off-the-cuff blues mastery. So how do you actually do it? How do you take all these ideas and get to Tommy Shannon level, where you're freely improvising and mixing everything up without stress and sounding amazing? In all my years teaching, I've never heard someone actually break this down. Us teachers usually just throw you a bunch of shit and then you have to put it all together yourself. So here's a stab at 3 simple steps that'll get you to off-the-cuff mastery. Step 1, practice the levels one at a time. So start with a simple play-along track. I've got one for you in the description in the key of E, and start at level 1. Play through the 12-bar form, get oriented with your survival shapes, and just play shuffle root notes. And then eventually switch to level 2, work on some blues box ideas. I'm doing this like fast motion, but you would take multiple runs through the 12-bar form before going to the next step, which would be working some level 3 scale type patterns, like 1, 3, 5, 6, or maybe a little 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 3, and beyond. And then level 4, working on some chromaticism. Once you can do that, which might take you a month or 2 of consistent practice, you can move on to step 2, transition on the transitions, which I thought sounded funny, and it means to pick an approach for your main bass line, let's say the blues box, and then on the transition bars, the bar before a chord change happens, you change your approach as a kind of bass fill to lead in to the chord change. So you might play this simple blues box pattern for 3 bars, but then when you hit bar 4, that's a transition bar because it leads into the 4 chord in the next measure, stick a chromatic 3-fret walk there. Or maybe using a simple triad, 1, 3, 5, 3 as your foundation, and then in bar 4, use the blues box as a variation and lead into the 4 chord. There are tons of possibilities here, so don't skimp and take at least a month to get really comfortable. Because in step 3, you're gonna go nuts! Slowly. It's time to actually do the thing and just straight up improvise a blues bass line. 1 bar might be a scale thing, and then it's blues box, and then it's chromatic, all just spur of the moment, off the cuff, top of the morning. And this is where teachers often just throw you in the deep end without steps 1 and 2, but work your way up from step 2 and start with slow tempos. You can hear Tommy Shannon's mastery of this in his bass playing on Pride and Joy, which uses shuffle root notes, chromaticism, scale patterns, and a couple other cool tricks. Now you've got all the tools to play killer blues bass lines at the jam. But what's really gonna trip you up long term isn't the notes or the technique, it's the inner game of how you psychologically handle being a beginner, making mistakes, comparing yourself to others. So click here and check out my How I Learned Bass If I Could Start Over video so you can avoid some of my dumb mistakes. Click on the link and click on the link, oh click on the link and watch the next video, boopity boop 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 boop.